just getting everyone using the same set of software. Will you take it away?
All right. So, oh, hello. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little, like 2 minutes about what Sage is, and then I'll talk mainly about SageMathCloud. Sage, here's the website, is an open source mathematical software package that I started a little over 10 years ago. And it has as its main goal to create an open source free viable alternative to MATLAB, Mathematica, Maple, and Magma. And it's been under development by a lot of people over many years. And it's sort of it's mature in many ways at this point. So that's kind of the quick background about Sage. And I'm not going to say much more about it. The main thing is that Sage technically is you could view it as an enormous Python library that is built primarily for pure mathematics education and research. That's the main functionality that it aims at. So it's good at doing things like working with solving integrals, working with graphs, so vertices and edges, drawing pictures, graphs, drawing 3D graphics, lots of combinatorics type functionality. Like if you have a graph and you want to compute its automorphism group. If you have a group and you want to compute things about it, like all of its subgroups or something like that, or its character table, then that's the sort of thing that Sage is optimized for or designed for. It's a standard open source package. You can download it. It's released under the GPL license. Okay, moving on. SageMathCloud is a way of using Sage, but also a bunch of other things, some of which have almost nothing to do with Sage, via a web browser. And that's the main thing I'll be telling you about today. And what I'm going to do is give you a tour of functionality that's available in Sage. Or in SageMathCloud, which I'll henceforth abbreviate as SMC. I'm just going to show you a bunch of things you can do. As you're watching this, you might think, hey, that's one thing that it might be handy to be able to do. And if that's the case, then maybe you'll want to use it for something. Okay? Feel free to stop me at any point and ask questions. And also, I'll make it easy for you to see on your own computer some of the things I'm doing and change some things and maybe mess it up as I'm going, as you'll see. So my plan is to create a brand new account right now, and hopefully that will work. We'll just make up the login and password together, and then anybody else here who has a laptop opened, if anybody brought a laptop or even a cell phone, you can log in using that login and password, and you'll be able to see what we're doing and even change things yourself. Okay, so that's one of the quick summary of SageMathCloud. The thing to take away, if you remember nothing else from today, is it's a way to collaboratively use Sage, IPython, LaTeX, and a terminal in a web browser. Okay, and so you'll see that. All right, so if you visit the sagemath.com or cloud.sagemath.com website, which I encourage you to do, you can also just go to the Sage website, which you could find by, I don't know, Googling for Sage, and then it's not too far down. If you go there, you can click on Use Sage Math Online. And that just takes you to the same website that I showed you, cloud.sagemath.com. Can I write on here? Looks like I can.
Yes.
Okay, so cloud.sagemath.com. Okay, so go there if you have a means of doing so, which you do, so do it. Okay, now we're going to make up an account. So all you have to do is choose a name, an email, and a password. The email does not have to be valid. If it's invalid, then you can't reset your password in case you forget it without, say, emailing me and begging. Though nobody's ever once done that. They've never said, I put in an invalid email and I can't seem to reset my password.
They're too embarrassed.
Yeah, it's never once happened. So let's just, our name will be Reproducible Research Seminar. I'll make up the email. How about rrs@uw.edu for reproducible research seminar.
That might be someone's actual email.
I hope, well, it won't matter unless we try to reset our password. You will only get an email in case of a password reset. And then let's make the password, let's see, RSS. It has to be not completely idiotic or it'll reject it. RRS, maybe 389. Okay. So the password is RRS389. Okay. And I agree to the terms of usage, create an account. Okay, I have now created an account. Anybody else here who wants to should be able to log in using these credentials. As soon as somebody succeeds at doing that, confirm. Okay? All right, so now that we've logged in, I think I can zoom a little without causing trouble. Okay, now that I've logged in, I'm going to create a project. There's really not much else for me to do. The only other thing I could do at this point is look at my account settings, which involves configuring various things like color schemes and so on. There's also a help page which has links to lots of information about SageMathCloud. One interesting part of this page is not really help, but it's some status information. This says that right now 556 people have their web browsers connected to the site. And of those 556 people, they actively edited a file, I think in the last 2 minutes, through the web browser. So 115 of them did. So that gives you a sense of the scale of how much the site's being used right now as we speak.
I logged in.
Good. Okay, good. So it's working. So now I'm going to create a new project. And I'll call this demo for talk. And I'm going to leave the description blank. And I'll click create project. Okay, so each day people create projects. On the help page, by the way, there's a link to more usage data. This is a fun page that gives you a sense of, whoa, why did that happen? That should not have downloaded it. That's strange. I have no idea why it downloaded it. I'm just going to bring it up in another browser. Makes no. So this is some data about how much SageMathCloud is used today. So at the top, 184 accounts were created in the last 24 hours. There were 375 projects created. So one of those was the one we just created. Then there's some tables or some plots that show further information about usage. This one's kind of a fun way of visualizing account creation each day over the last 2 weeks. So the blue plot, starting at midnight UTC until midnight the following day, is account creation. So it's the number of accounts starting at 0 as it goes up. And then the green one is the number of projects that were created during that 24-hour period, the running number. So like when it bends a little, it could be because of a news article or just people waking up or their professor saying, hey, you need to make an account so you can do your homework. And I think this year, the largest single place where accounts were created is at the University of Hawaii, where they use it a lot in calculus classes and so on. I think they've had, just in 2015, almost 1,000 accounts created. And that's in Hilo, Hawaii, which isn't even like Maui or Oahu. It's like on Big Island. Okay, so back to our tour. So this is not the tour. Here it is.
Why are there more projects than people? Can
Because
you run several projects simultaneously?
yeah, so I could create another project right now. And depending on how you're using SageMathCloud, you might have only one project, or personally, I have probably 70 projects or something. I don't even know how many projects I have. So one person can create many projects. Just like with GitHub, you might have a lot of different repositories. With SageMathCloud, you might have a lot of projects. A project is a complete collection of files. It's isolated from other projects, though you can copy files between them if you need to. it technically maps to a Linux account on the server. A project is a Linux account on the server. But you can have many different ones. And you can use them, as you'll see in a few minutes, you can add collaborators to a project. So right now, the project we just created, this one right here, has no collaborators. But we can add some additional collaborators. And then those people have access to all the files in our project. So you might be working on a project with somebody, like writing a paper, and you add all of the co-authors as collaborators on that project. But then you start writing another paper, so you'd create a different project for that other paper, because it might involve completely different people. Okay, so back to our demo. I've created an account, and then inside of that I've created a project. And if you have opened this, then you should see right here, if you click the refresh button, you should see Demo for Talk as one of the projects that's available. Okay? So does anybody else see that? Okay, excellent. So now, clicking on that again, we could add collaborators to the project, or you could create or upload files. So I'm going to click on Create or Upload Files. And there's a default file name, which you can change to anything you want. And let's see, I'll call it foo.py. So I just typed in the box foo.py. There's some buttons for making specific types of files like worksheet, a Sage worksheet, an IPython notebook, a LaTeX document, a terminal, a task list, and course management stuff. And there's actually a bunch of other file types that are fully supported, as you can see. And so we'll just create a Python file. Okay, so there it is. So this is a Python file, and I can then edit it. So let me do something. This is a Python file. I'll make a function, foo, which takes arguments bar and spam, and it'll print I am foo, and I have %s and %s. Okay, so I'm writing some Python code in a text editor inside of SageMathCloud. Can somebody add a docstring to this? So anyone who's logged in, all you have to do is just open this file. If you click on Files now, that will refresh it, or you can click on the Home button, or you can click on the refresh right there, and you'll see that foo.py is there. If you click on Log, it'll show files that have been opened and in order, and who opened them, and you can click there as well. So like if a file is somewhere buried deep inside of some subdirectory and you know it's called foo, you can just type foo right here, and it will show you only the files that are called foo in order from when they were last opened, and also who opened them. So you can search for, like, if you know somebody opened a file, you can search for it. This log, by the way, that I'm showing you, is itself just stored in a file in the file system. So you could open that directly if you wanted to. You could back it up some other way, etc. So in any case, let's go back here. Look, there's a docstring. And as I think Randy was typing that, I don't know, maybe you could type something else, and you'll see that his cursor should appear there. I hope. I'm not seeing it. Okay.
Isn't he logged in as you?
Yeah, but it would still show, it should still show cursors of other people. Okay, there it is. Yeah. It was just light. It chooses a random color still, which was just like a quick thing I did as a hack when I was writing it, and I still haven't changed that. So I guess it was, yeah.
It's not very responsive. Maybe the Wi-Fi.
Could be. The responsiveness, like how quickly the cursors are broadcast, depends on a lot of factors. And isn't something I necessarily want to make super fast. Looks like it's working though. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to send the cursor broadcast messages too quickly, because then it's kind of a waste. It's a parameter I can tune. Okay, good. So there. All right, so now we have a Python file. What can we do with it? There's a couple of things about the editor I'll show you really quickly, but really let me just show you really quickly. You can split the screen of the editor if you want to look at two different points at once. You can individually change the font size, so you can make this one really big and maybe make the other one really small. That can be nice if you want a big kind of bird's eye view, at the same time something up close. You can also split it horizontal, or split it vertically rather than horizontally, which can be handy. so that's kind of, or auto indent is kind of useless in Python, but it's extremely useful in other languages like HTML and C and so on, where you just select some code, and you click the button, and it fixes the indentation to be correct. And you can do things like shifting whole blocks left and right. That's often very useful in Python. So you select a block of code, and then you can shift it left or right. And you can also do that using a keyboard. You just use tab or shift tab. So you select and then hit tab or shift tab. There's search and replace and other things. There's also a chat, so you can go over here and say, hello, everybody. And that will put a little message. That's the file, so maybe somebody else can chat as well. Did somebody else chat? I don't see anything. Making me nervous. Cool. So normally, if there were multiple people, it's unhappy. Yeah, it combines everything together because there's only one person. Just for fun, let me add myself. Sure. Me. What's your email address? Or what? Okay. All right, so I've added both of us as collaborators in project settings. Now 3 people are listed. And now if I go over to my normal account, not logged in via private browsing mode, I'll discover that there's a new project. After refreshing, demo for talk. And now I can sign in. Notice if we go to the log here, it says William Stein just opened this project at the top. And then going back, I can click on the foo.py, and then it says that I opened foo.py. Going back, I can then look at the chat log and say, oops, sorry, I'm here, let's get going. Okay, and then I can go back over here, and it should be that there's a chat message for me. The chat's pretty nice, by the way. You can put HTML, Markdown, LaTeX, etc. in there, as you would expect. So you can do something like that, etc. Okay. And there's also notifications up here. So at the top, when there's activity on files, like comments and so on, it will tell you. And it'll show you the last couple of days worth of activity, sorted by time of last activity, and who, and so on. So for more activity, let's look at my normal thing. What this does is it gives you activity information about every single project you're a collaborator on. Since I'm a collaborator on like 100 projects, that's a lot of activity, as you can see here. So if I want to know, what my grad student Hao Chen is up to, I just type Hao, and there he is, or etc. Okay, so back here. Now let's actually do something with this Python file. So what I'm going to do is run, for starters, Python in a terminal, and then I'm going to simply import this file and run it. This is going to be almost exactly like the traditional way you might work on your desktop in the old days. The only thing is that we're doing it in a browser. And then I'll show you progressively how we can work with this file from a Sage worksheet, an IPython notebook, etc., in a very similar way. All right, to get a terminal, what I do is, again, I can click New, like I did before, which gives this page, which has all these different types of things. At that point, I can click Terminal. I can also, by the way, drag and drop files from my computer. I can also click on this little drop-down. Hey, there's a terminal already. Okay, but I could do that by clicking on the drop-down and clicking Terminal. And what that will do is create a terminal. By the way, somebody else created a terminal, which I'm kind of a few seconds earlier. And so here's what they did. That's their cursor. Whoever did that, do something else. Do it again, or yeah. So you see how the terminal sessions are synchronized. So multiple people have access to the same terminal session at once. So here I can do import foo.foo xy. See, I'm calling that function. So that's just, it's literally exactly your normal workflow. You create file. It's a potential workflow. You create files, you run Python. So, and of course you can also run IPython if you want a better interactive terminal. import foo.foo. That is not going to work. There we are. And you could do things like use vi foo.py. You might think, okay, this is a really bad idea because I have foo.py open somewhere else. So is this a bad idea? I'm editing this in VM. But look, I don't know if you noticed that turned orange for a second. That meant that it noticed that the file was changed somehow. So if you have the editor opened on a file and then you change the file on the file system, the editor will merge in the change that just happened. It'll revert to the change that just happened automatically. This is extremely important if, like me, you have often 10 or 15 files open, and then you suddenly do like a git checkout or something and switch your all your files to something from before. You want your editor to suddenly and instantly notice that all the files just changed, and that will happen here.
Changes that you didn't say in the other.
They are reverted. Except, notice this little history button, which one of Randy's undergrads added over the summer. For every file by default, when you're editing it, it stores all the diffs as you go every second or so with a little slider. So if in fact we mess things up, you just drag the slider and you can undo to where you were before. And so it gives the exact time of that revision and etc. So you just move it to the previous version that you really wanted. Okay? It's especially useful given that multiple people could be editing this project at any time, and everybody has write access who's a collaborator. So that's one way to get your previous versions. Notice, by the way, the history, it's not like some weird thing that uses a database behind the scenes and you don't really know what's going on, and it's integrated in the editor of foo.py. It just pops open. So foo.py, while it's being edited, the editor is also writing to a file .foo.py.sagehistory. Each time you make a diff, it's writing a line to that file, and it's saving it. You can back up that file, put it in Git if you want, do whatever you want with it. It's just a normal file. The history of our editing of foo.py is just stored in a file. You can delete it whenever you want, and then suddenly the history gets blanked, etc. Okay?
So wait, if I move the thing back to an earlier time, how do I actually make the file become that earlier? Now how do I do it?
We haven't implemented a button that reverts it. What you would have to do, let's say I wanted it to be this, here's a reasonable thing right there. You would do Command A, copy, paste. So, sorry, but...
You can't just click save and have it save.
Nope.
That's currently showing.
Yeah, there's no save button even. This is simply a not implemented yet. In fact, somebody requested that a lot recently, so...
So can you do this on a LaTeX file or on Word?
Yes, on LaTeX, not on Word. So if you want something like this for something like Word documents, you would want to use Google Drive, which is like Word documents. And there's some like hack or extension that you can, I don't know, I saw an article about it, which does something similar to this with a slider for Google Drive. But, in any case, so I just want to say that numerically the primary audience of SageMathCloud, and the reason I initially wrote it was for students in classes. And this is a sort of functionality that is really good for students in classes because they're just like banging on the keyboard and they get all lost or confused, they figure something out, they get it all perfect, then something crazy happens, who knows, and it's all gone and they're like, what the hell? And then you point out, hey, there's a slider right here that gets you back to that thing that you wanted. In your worksheet, just copy it out, and you're good to go, and then they're very happy. So that's what this is aimed at primarily, but it is useful otherwise. Yes?
For something more complicated, I might not know by looking at just the file that this is the stage where I was good.
Right.
I might need to look at an output like a plot or something. Is there a way I could see that with this?
Yes, sorry. So this is just the most simple, concrete, special case. I'll show you some other things in a moment. So let me show you a Sage worksheet, which is similar to this, but it kind of answers that question. So I'll say new Sage worksheet. Here it is. It's a little, okay. So I'll draw a plot of a sine of x squared as x goes from minus pi to 2 pi. Okay, so there's a plot. This editor that I'm using, it's very similar. Well, it's almost identical to the editor I was just using before for Python files, but it's enhanced to be more interactive and embed plots and so on. This is called a Sage Worksheet, and it's kind of like IPython notebooks or the old Sage notebook format, but dramatically different when you actually use it. So what makes it different is your entire thing that you're working with is one single file. There's not a bunch of input cells and output cells that are kind of different HTML elements, which has interesting implications. So I can do things like copy, just to emphasize this, or how about, so I can take like a range of stuff, say starting here and going down there, and I can copy it, and then I can make a new Sage worksheet somewhere else, say a new blank one, and I can just paste that whole thing. So you can take whole arbitrary blocks of stuff and copy and paste it, because it's really just a single editor. And there's a lot of other things, like you can have multiple cursors all in the same document. So I can do find on all open parentheses, and then you hit Control. Oh, that did not work because I am assuming that I have Sublime text bindings, which I don't. Sorry. I want to change to Sublime text bindings because I'm used to those. So, by the way, if you use another editor like Emacs, Vim, or Sublime, there are keyboard bindings that are similar to those. The largest as far as code, so the editor is code mirror. The largest bindings are Vim, which are a shockingly large amount of JavaScript. They implemented a lot of Vim there. Okay, so now I've changed my key bindings, though unfortunately I have to close the file and reopen it before I can get the new key bindings. Okay, so if I say search for open parentheses and I hit Control D a few times, it'll select all of them, and I get multiple cursors, and I can do things like put like a space in before and after each of them, and it does them all at once, which is kind of fun. So you can do find and replace really nicely that way. Just search, and then you do Control D a few times in a block, and then just type whatever you want, and you can do any operations at all. You can also just hit Command click or Alt click on Linux a few times, and that puts the cursors at all of those points. So see, I have multiple cursors, which is kind of neat. But your question was about the slider, so let's go back to that. So let's see. So we have this document, and I've sort of been playing around with it for a few minutes. It has a plot in it. Maybe I'll put another plot, sphere. So this is a 3D graphic. You can rotate around. Maybe a green icosahedron. Actually, notice there's some buttons across the top, so you can make some nice plots without having to think too hard about the code. So here's an implicit 3D plot in a moment. Guess it's kind of big. Yeah, there it is. So, okay, so we have all this stuff here. If you click on history, then it gives you the history, except for the very last step. And you can drag the slider and it undoes it and includes the plots and so on. Okay, so that answers your question. There is not currently, I mean, I'm sure all of you use IPython notebooks all the time, but unfortunately the history slider isn't implemented yet for IPython notebooks, but it should be extremely easy to do. I think I should be able, it should be a few hours to make that work in principle, as you'll see. But it doesn't exist yet, but it will soon. Because everything, all the infrastructure to make it work is there.
So if you copy and paste one of these things into a 3D plot,
works fine. So let's take the sphere, just copy it, paste it into the top here. There it is. You could even take this, copy and paste it into a worksheet under a different account that knows nothing about this worksheet, and it'll work.
So the mesh is cached somewhere?
Yes. All objects that are displayed as output in Sage worksheets, what happens is they're turned into a blob, and they're stored in a database with the key being the SHA-1 hash of the blob. So I have a big blob store in the cloud, literally in Google Compute Engine's cloud, that stores every image that anyone creates in a worksheet. And so like if you look at the underlying text of this worksheet, where you see the images, there's actually just like a URL to a SHA-1 hash of something, or well, it's a UUID, but there's just it's like a tiny, it's one line. So I'm not storing the data of all these scenes directly in the worksheet, just a reference to that data. But it's nice if you want to save a worksheet on GitHub or something, you're just saving some plain text, and it's not very much either. It's very small, which is important because every time you type, it's computing diffs and making patches and so on. And to do that efficiently, you don't want your document to be enormous. So if you were to embed all the 3D graphics and 2D graphics as large text strings inside of your document, like is done in the IPython notebook, then diffing and patching can be very slow. So it's best to avoid that if possible. Okay, so that's several things on my list. By the way, you can use Emacs as well in the command line. A bit bigger. There's Emacs. You see there's colors. You can also, if you use Tmux, Tmux will work really well. There were a few special things involving control codes and little stuff I had to do to make sure it works well, but it does work well. And it's also nice, like if you just close this terminal and then come back to it, I don't remember which one it was the other one. You close the terminal and come back to it, it's exactly like you left it, unless the entire project has shut down, which by default happens after a certain number of hours of idle time, which I can change easily. But it persists the session. So if my browser just crashes right now, I'm not losing any state at all, except the list of open files. That's the only thing that I lose. And in fact, as you're editing this file even if you haven't saved it, so I put in some text, and then I kill the whole tab. Oh, no, no. But not, because I guess I'm private. So let me reload it. Demo for talk. That random text is still there. I hadn't even saved it yet. The reason is because the diffs are being persistent. Like every time I type a character, a couple of characters, it figures out exactly what I did and it sends it to the server. And even if it hasn't saved it to disk, it's still there. And so when I reconnect to the session, I get the same thing again. I mean, it's just like when you're working on a remote machine. Because you are. All right, so let's see what else. Next thing is IPython notebooks. All right, so it's just another thing. You can either, again, go new IPython notebook, or just type a file name for it right here, like my notebook. And then you click new IPython notebook, and there it is. Also in the terminal, if you want to make a file, you can say open bar.py, for example, and that will it'll create the file if it isn't there, and then it will open it in the browser. So anyways, back to our IPython notebook. So there is our IPython notebook. So this is currently, I think, IPython 2.3, but there it is. And it's synchronized, so if we open the same file in another browser or as another user, then you can see that what you do in one page synchronizes with the other page. And I actually spent half of yesterday working on improving how that synchronization works and changing some of the details. And so I'll show you something that will give you a sense of how it works under the hood. Okay? So what I'm going to do is do the following. So there's a hidden file. Whenever you, whoops, wow, that's terrifying. What did I call it? My notebook. Okay. So when you open an IPython notebook, a bunch of things happen. When you create one, it starts an IPython notebook server running, and then proxies through a bunch of steps from your browser to that remote IPython notebook, which is running on some computer somewhere. Just out of curiosity, I can tell you where this one's running. This one is running in Padelford, down in the basement of Padelford. Actually, this is the math department building. So it's running somewhere. It could be running in Padelford. It could be running in the 4545 data center, or it could be running at Google Compute Engine. There are locations all over, and it's pretty much random. And if Padelford were to suddenly stop working, the Padelford data center, which happens periodically for often days on end, not so much recently, then this project would stop working for about a minute, and then it would suddenly all start working again, randomly either at Google or the 4545 data center. And it would have your files except possibly the last few minutes. It makes snapshots and then rsyncs things around every couple of minutes. And I'll get to how that works in a minute. But to go back to what we were just talking about, I want to show you how the IPython stuff works under the hood. So what it does is it opens the IPython notebook using the IPython notebook server, and then it creates a synchronization-friendly document that is in correspondence with the actual IPython notebook. And the IPython notebook, its format is some JSON format. It's not synchronization friendly, in my opinion. It's, by sync, I'm talking about an algorithm called differential synchronization that's used in Google Docs and so on. Maybe, I don't know. In any case, here is the sync-friendly format that we're using. It has one line per cell over here. And let me zoom in a little, make it big enough. It has, so if you look at the IPython notebook format, there's an input field for a cell, an output, input field, a source field, and then a bunch of other information about the cell. And what we have over here is the input, and then a special Unicode character that's reserved, or maybe it's unreserved, and then the source, and then some metadata, some JSON. And what happens is, when multiple people are editing the IPython notebook, I don't know, Randy, could you edit it a little bit? Whoa, I don't know why that. Sorry, it's fine on my screen. Projector just stopped. I'll just unplug it and replug it. Strange. I'll check my. No device detected, so it must be loose, like you said. It's just not detecting it. Try the other port. Yeah. Oh yeah, it could be. It might not be the laptop side. So let's see this right here. Really bad. In fact, almost. This didn't work, but this was almost out. Yes. Okay, good. Sorry, folks at home. All right. So, as I was saying, notice the file got bigger. As you make changes over here to the IPython notebook, this file changes. And what happens is everybody who's viewing the IPython notebook, they also have a synchronized copy of this file on the right. And when a line changes, it then changes the corresponding cell right here. So that's how it works. In fact, you can fake it. You don't even need an IPython notebook. Like if I type that, notice that it changed to 12 right there. So any client at all that can look at this file and edit it can cause things to happen to all the other viewers. So IPython, it's HTML stuff. That's just a way of rendering and viewing what's in this file. And so there is a history, or at least there could be. I don't know whether it's being recorded for the file or not. I guess it is, otherwise the button wouldn't be there. So all I have to do is make it so that setting this file at a certain point causes a certain rendering. I just haven't implemented that yet, but it will happen. Okay, so that's IPython, how the sync works. It turns the IPython notebook into this file, does synchronization of the file, turns it back, and it does some clever tricks that are extremely important in order to deal with things like if you change the order of the cells, it needs to very efficiently propagate that information. If you edit a cell, it shouldn't just delete the whole cell and create a new one and so on. So a couple of little tricks in there that are really important when you start testing out big IPython notebooks. Yes?
Does it do everything that IPython notebook does?
Yeah, it's just the, yeah, and in fact, it is literally just the, I didn't re-implement the IPython notebook at all. I didn't change a line of code of IPython. Okay, maybe I changed one line, but that's it, only one line. And it wasn't the front end, it was some back end. But yeah, it's literally just IPython. What I did was I embed the usual exact IPython notebook in an iframe, and then I modified the JavaScript a little kind of from outside to hook into it when it changes and also to change it when I see changes in the corresponding document. So everything you normally do in IPython will work perfectly. The only thing is that it's synchronized so that if you open your notebook on 3 different computers or somebody else opens it, it gets synchronized. Okay?
And if I keep that in something like Git, will it be the corresponding worksheet that I should be backing up, or
So this file right here is just totally ephemeral. The sync.doc3 one, you should just ignore it. And when you click save here, which will happen automatically, or if you do file save, then it just saves the .ipynb file. And that's the thing that you want to, just the normal thing. One other thing, if you're having trouble with the synchronization or somehow there's something funny, if you click on About, this gives a link directly to the unmodified normal IPython notebook server. It's just there. You can click on the top and it gives you the browser for all IPython notebooks that are running. You can click on all this stuff. So this is always just 100% an IPython notebook server running on a remote Linux machine. That's what that is. And then I just add some functionality on top, which you can optionally use.
Is that compatible with the newest version of
The one that came out a week ago?
Yeah.
I don't think it's compatible. No. Maybe. I mean, I will upgrade it. Very soon, this will just be IPython 3, and you'll never remember IPython 2. I think there's some funny incompatibilities with IPython 4's notebook format. People were complaining about it just sort of silently failing when they accidentally tried to open those, but that's another story. But IPython 3, I will just upgrade it soon, and then everybody will just have that.
So from a reproducibility point of view, let's say there's an old IPython notebook that's a previous version.
Yep.
So how are we going to deal with that if this has been updated to version 3?
So
shows up with something
in a project, if you want, you can install your own copy of anything because it's just a terminal, it's a Linux account, there's lots of disk space there by default. So you could install a different version of IPython. But I do not claim that SageMathCloud is the ultimate tool for reproducibility. In fact, I would claim perhaps the opposite. It does not, I'm not at all trying to create an environment that's perfectly stable over time and super good way to share stuff so other people can exactly replicate it later. I think there's other ways, there are things like terminal.com that maybe are a better tool at addressing that environment. Nonetheless, there are some things about SageMathCloud that are relevant to reproducibility, such as the history slider, as you saw. You might think, I would like to reproduce how I made this document. And now I can at least see exactly what typing happened. And same with the worksheets. So you might complain that the Sage worksheet, everything's out of order. You defined a variable here and then you did something there. But at least there is actually a record of exactly what you did when you did it in order.
And that
That's the history.
is saved forever unless you delete the corresponding file?
Even then, but I'll get to that in a moment. But yes, the history, currently the history just gets appended, or that file is continually updated until it gets, it just gets really big. That's a not implemented problem because if it gets to have 50,000 commits, then it starts to become, or not commits, but patches in it, it starts to get unwieldy to just display it. And there's some design issues involving that, which need to be dealt with. It's not done. That's it. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, oh, yes. Sure. How do you use it for teaching?
Set it all up. Obviously your students aren't changing the same.
That's right. That's a really good question. I'll answer it. So let me close all these files that I have.
And when do you have everyone working on the same file, or is it so you can access all the files?
There's different ways you can do things, but if you click on New, there's one answer to this question. There's a button there, Manage a Course, which is designed specifically to solve a problem that a person typically has when they teach a course. Namely, they want to create a homework assignment or some documents, maybe a homework assignment, maybe a syllabus, whatever, or just some stuff they want the students to use. They want to get that homework assignment to all the students in the class. They want the students to do stuff with them, with those documents, and then they want to collect the documents back from the students. And they want to have them nicely organized, etc. It would be nice if, by the way, you could, with basically a click of a button, create one project for every single student in your class that you own and that they're a collaborator on. It would also be nice if maybe if you have a TA with basically one click, you could add them to all the other projects so that they have access to all the students' projects. And so that when a student asks you a question, a student says, I mean, the situation you want to be in is something like, I don't know, the student emails you and they say, my file doesn't work, right? And their file looks something like this maybe. I don't know. They just don't know about indentation significance. And so what they do is they send you a link. They send you that exact link. You paste it into your browser, your TA does. When they open it, because they're collaborators on the project, they get it instantly. And they just look, and like in 1 second, they're like, oh, duh, that's the problem. You don't know indentation. So you could put a comment in the code or say, note indentation is significant. Sorry. And you just put that. It's amazing how quickly you can solve or answer people's questions involving coding if you can see exactly what they see with the state there. And they're actually doing it. You can even see what their cursor flying around here, confused.
You can also see what's going on in their
terminal
window.
Yep. Yep.
Running the problems, running.
Yep, you literally see what's in. So that's how you use it for teaching. Let me make a course object so you can just see it in practice. So new, and then let's see, course sample. Yeah. Click on manage a course. Okay, so this is what it looks like. The first time I tried to write this course management stuff, I had some complicated database thing going on in the backend and so on. Now it's much simpler. It's just a file. A course, there's a file called .course. It's a file where each line is a JSON string, and it contains information about your course. Okay, so that's more than you wanted to know. But you can add students to your course. I don't know if I can add, I guess I can add myself. So I just added a student. What you do is you just paste in, separated by commas, a bunch of email addresses. They don't have to be users of SageMathCloud right now. One problem, you do have to know the email addresses of your students. At UW, that's easy. Some universities, it's impossible. So you just paste them in, then you'll get a list of students. And if there's enough students so that it would be tedious, you'll get a big button right here which you can click, and it will create a project automatically for all the students. So they each get their own individual project. And then they'll also get an invitation message saying, please sign up for SageMathCloud if they don't already have an account. When they sign up, they'll automatically have this project available to them. You can also create assignments. So what you do, to make an assignment, you just create a directory. So I'll just make one here. And in the directory, you put files, so homework.markdown. See? Okay, here's a homework assignment. By the way, there's a markdown editor, and it does real-time preview on the other side. And it has lots of buttons for things like, all that standard text editing stuff. Okay, so you do that, and then you can add, let's see, what directory was that? 2.15. So now I made an assignment, and then I can, you can assign to individual students. This is reminding me I have to actually create the student's project first. So you create a folder that represents an assignment. You click the button Assign All. In parallel, it copies out to all the student projects that folder. You wait a while, and then you click the button Collect All, and it copies them all back. And then you...
Even if they're not done or whatever.
Yep, it's when you click the button, it copies them back. You can copy them back in their current state, whatever. And also, you can click, there'll be a link to their project right here after you create the project. You can click and see what they're doing right now, kind of get a current status of what's going on. If you look at your notifications, you'll see sort of like, if you type a student's name, you'll see the files they've edited recently, etc. And you can click on that notification, and you'll literally then be sitting there with the student, so to speak. There's also some settings so you can like set the title of the course and other stuff. So this is useful for managing a course. You might also, this doesn't do that right now, but you might want to make one big common project that's kind of a free-for-all where everyone is a collaborator on it. So I typically do that. It causes great confusion, so it might not be a good idea. Like students will try to do their homework inside of that, and then it's not the place to do it. Okay, so let's see, what else do I want to show you? Oh, there's backups. So this is a very strange, I would say extremely strange design decision, but important one. It's really critical to how this thing is built. So there's a link right here which says backups. It's the sort of thing you'd look at if you lost your work or something was gone and you messed something up or accidentally deleted all your files, right? So you click on backups, and what this has is every few minutes there's a timestamped snapshot of all of the files in your project. It is implemented using a system called BUP, which stands for back things up, which is actually a Python program that is built on Git. And what it does is it backs up all the files in your home directory in your project using Git. Except Git isn't really well adapted for certain aspects of doing that. For example, what if you have a very large file, like a gigabyte data file? Git is not good for dealing with that. Or if you have lots of Git repos in your home directory, then Git is very bad. In fact, the very, 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 very zeroth version of SageMathCloud, home directories were Git repos. And this didn't work very well because the very first thing the first user wanted to do, and then the second user, was put a Git repo inside of it. But you can't have Git repos nested in Git repos very easily. They become submodules. They're treated differently, and all kinds of weird things happen. It's very painful. So anyways, if we look at this, we can see at the beginning, this is what it looked like. 21 minutes ago, this is what we had. 3 minutes ago, this is what we have. Okay? And you can click on these. Like, if we go right here, we'll see nostalgically that foo.py used to look like that. Whereas now it looks like this, has mistakes in it. So there's backups of everything. One thing there isn't, though, is any way to delete these snapshots. When a snapshot gets made, it stays there forever, which is really bad if for some users. For example, if you're saving password files on here for some reason and sharing them with somebody, and then you want to delete them, I don't know, I think that would be a really stupid way of using this, but in fact somebody was and complained a lot, and I got a complaint even today about the inability of deleting things. But if you're teaching a class with a bunch of students, it's totally reasonable to make it so that they can't accidentally delete stuff or on purpose. You just want a record of what happened in that project, and everybody wins from that, I think. So it's a weird design decision, but it is really, really important. It means that you can also trust your collaborators to not completely nuke everything. If I add Max as a collaborator to this project and then go to sleep, I can go to sleep knowing that when I wake up, he hasn't deleted irrevocably all the files in my project, right? I mean, it's just good to know that I can see exactly how things were right now. Yes?
How much storage is an individual user can?
So by default today, and this could change tomorrow, each project gets in the home directory 2 gigabytes of space. It's compressed and deduplicated, so you actually get a lot out of that 2 gigabytes. Often a text file will get like a factor of 10 savings. So it's a good 2 gigabytes. The snapshots are not limited at all. They don't use that space. So so the snapshots do not count against your 2 gigabytes. Basically, disk is really cheap, and so I'm very generous with disk space. Okay? And by the way, if you click here, it says email if you need anything increased. People email me every day saying, hey, I need more disk space, I need this, I need that. And then if I look at this exact same page, because I'm the administrator, I see a slightly different version of that setting, which is edit. So I can just say, oh, I'd really wish that were 3 gigabytes. Done. And now, let's see.
What happens if you reduce
Now it's 3 gigabytes. It can make the project inaccessible, unfortunately. If you use up all of your disk space, this hasn't happened to anyone in a long time, but if you do, then it can make it impossible to open the project to delete your files because it takes a little bit of space to open your project. So watch out. There will be a way, I will write an interface that lets you delete files until you have enough space, but I haven't done that yet. Right now the interface is email help@SageMath, and then I just manually do that.
Can you download your project?
Sort of. There's a lot of things. I mean, I'm totally running out of time, I think. But yeah, you can download your project. There's no one click to get everything in your project at present, but just to emphasize the flexibility of this, so you can use Git, for example. So you could just take take any directory in your project and just use Git and then push it to GitHub. And you can, and there you are. So you can just push and pull to GitHub or wherever else. There's a lot of, there is, by default, projects don't allow network access to all the outside internet because people at UW Tech complained about this. So some of these computers are running at UW, and some people get accounts in them and then try to hack into other computers, which is, of course, against the terms of service, but that doesn't stop anyone. And the second they do that, UW very wisely, the second they get a complaint, UW very wisely, the NetOps people shut off all network access for that computer, which is kind of annoying because it happened a few times. And what I did now is that by default, a project, there's a little thing that says network access. It's false, except for a explicit whitelist of sites like GitHub. GitHub, they expect to be attacked and hacked, and they're not going to complain to UW because somebody tries to, SSH into their site and types the wrong password 3 times. So there are a couple of good sites like that, but generally speaking, sites are, there's just an explicit whitelist of sites that are allowed. I can change this to network access true, though, with just a click of a button.
Can you just add
It has to be IP addresses. If you send me the IP addresses for Bioconductor, I can add that. But I don't currently resolve. It's tricky to go from name to IP address because it depends on where you are, and it changes randomly, and people might be doing DNS load balancing and stuff. So, but I'm happy to add it if you just email that address. Okay, I'm totally out of time, so I'm going to just show you like 1 minute of a few things that are super important. You can edit LaTeX documents. This is a document. What happens is on the left you type, everything's exactly like before, split pane, zoom, synchronization, etc. On the right you have the preview of the document that you're working with. Whenever you click save, it LaTeX the document and then updates the preview. When you double click on the right hand side, it takes you to the corresponding point on the left hand side. And when you're over here and you click on forward, it takes you to the corresponding point over there. It's more powerful than share LaTeX and write LaTeX and so on because you also have a full Linux terminal under the hood that you can do anything with. So you can run Python scripts to process things, run Lua, whatever you want. So it's incredibly powerful. And keep everything under Git or Mercurial or whatever. Okay, so that's LaTeX. And there's also a to-do list functionality, which I use constantly all day, every day. So give a talk. It has some neat features. You can use hashtags, and they automatically appear in the top. And when you click on them, it'll show only the things that match the tag. So if I click on talk, I only see the top things. You can also put in like little sub-to-dos, like prepare, finish. And notice that there's this kind of preview at the bottom. If you click here, it'll exit and unexit. So it automatically turns square boxes into check boxes, etc. So there's that. And this is just like everything else. Everything is synchronized. So multiple people open to the same page, see the same thing. Wow, that's everything. Okay, I've showed you everything. Done.
Can you delete everything you did?
No, I can't. Well, I mean, I could, but normally you can't.
Keep your account from overflowing if you can't.
Oh, sorry, you can delete all these files, yeah. So, so for example, there's a PDF file here. You can just click on trash. Then it goes to the trash. Then you click on trash, you click here again, and then it's gone. And that's all that counts for your quota, is your files, not the snapshots. So, yeah. Or you can, there's a little terminal right here also. So you can do like remove star.
Good command.
Yeah. So maybe I'll do remove star dot tasks. See, now it's gone. Okay, so any other questions? I know that I'm totally out of time. So. Oh wait, my talk's just about to start. Okay, thanks. And my email address is wstein@uw.edu. So just email me if you have any questions at all. You're welcome.